Not far from the big station called Knapford, there is a switch with two tracks going two different ways. One track continues on the main line, while the other goes to the branch line. While larger engines such as Gordon continue onto the main line, smaller engines such as Thomas take the track to the branch line. Unlike the hustle and bustle of the main line, the branch line is very peaceful. Every day, Thomas the tank engine would go on his branch line run from Knapford Station all the way to Farquhar. Along with the branch line, there is a bus named Bertie who runs on the roads. But sometimes Bertie teases Thomas about roads and rails and how Bertie is faster than Thomas, much to Thomas's annoyance. But despite this, the two are really good friends. But one day, things were about to change for the worse. Thomas had just finished his branch line run at Farquhar and was just talking to Bertie. "Looks like I beat you again, Bertie." "Don't get too cocky, Thomas. One day I will beat you when you least expect it." Yeah, whatever you say, buddy." "You know something, Thomas? Even though Sir Topham Hatt doesn't approve of our antics, I enjoy our races." "I agree. What can be better than having a race with my good friend Bertie?" "You can say that again." Their conversation was interrupted by a loud sound. "What was that?" "I don't know, Bertie. It sounded like an explosion." Then Percy raced in front of Thomas. Thomas! Cinders and ashes!" "Percy, how many times do I have to tell you not to do that?" "Sorry, Thomas, but we have to go. The nuclear plant has exploded." And without hesitation, Thomas and Percy raced out of the station, with Bertie struggling to keep up. Then there was trouble. Thomas came to a complete stop. Percy noticed this. "Thomas, we have to go now." "I can't. I've run out of coal." Percy buffered onto Thomas and pulled him to the main line. But when they got to the main line, there was worse to come. A mutant engine that looked like James was racing towards them. "Percy, take Annie and Clarabelle. I don't think I'm gonna make it." "Oh, yes you are, Thomas, because I'm not going anywhere without you." James was coming up fast. "You gotta leave me, Percy. I'll hold James off. Take care of Annie and Clarabelle for me." Percy quickly raced along with Annie and Clarabelle. Meanwhile, Bertie was diverted onto another road, trying to escape. He was going at speeds that he had never gone before. He was terrified. Along the way, Bertie ran into Harold the helicopter. "Harold, help! We're doing everything we can to neutralize the explosion, but so far nothing's working. But in the meantime, you need to evacuate Sodor as soon as possible. I may be safe in the sky, but you're not safe on the road." Bertie wasted no time racing away. But Harold was wrong about being safe in the sky. The shockwave struck the island. The shockwave caused Harold to lose control and crash land into a haystack. Meanwhile, Bertie was still on the run. He also felt the shockwave. But he kept going. He was determined to escape Sodor. Next he ran into Bulgy, who was idling at a station. "Bulgy, didn't you hear the explosion? We need to leave now." "It's probably just an active volcano. There are lots of them on islands and they tend to explode all the time." "But Bulgy, that wasn't a volcano. That was the nuclear power plant." But Bulgy was having none of it. "Be off with you, single-decker bus. I have bigger problems to deal with." And with that, Bulgy drove away. This made Bertie cross, but he knew he had to keep going. Meanwhile, Bulgy met with George the steamroller. "Hey George, great news! The rails are empty. You know what to do now?" "I most certainly do. Railways are no good. Turn them into roads. Rip them up. Turn them into roads." "That's the spirit. Get right on it." "Hey Bulgy, what's that noise?" A mutant Harold was flying towards the two vehicles. Bulgy quickly drove off, but George, being a steamroller, couldn't drive as fast as Bulgy, and the mutant Harold caught up with him. While on the run, Bulgy was trying to escape. Then he saw Trevor coming in the opposite direction. Or at least he thought it was Trevor. Meanwhile, Bertie was still on the run when he ran into Terrence. "Bertie, get in the barn, quickly!" And Terrence and Bertie took shelter in a nearby barn. "Terrence, what's going on? Everyone seems to be mutating." "It's the nuclear explosion. It's causing everyone to mutate into these monsters." "But what do we do, Terrence?" "The only thing we can do, wait this whole thing out." And that's exactly what the bus and tractor did. A few days pass, and Bertie and Terrence still haven't left the barn. "Terrence, how much longer do we have to stay in this barn?" "Hopefully not for very much longer. The radiation should have subsided by now." Terrence peeked out of the barn door to investigate. "Well, I've been out here for 5 seconds now and I haven't mutated yet. Come on, Bertie, we have to get out of here." "But what if we run into those mutants again?" "We'll just have to be extra cautious is all." Then they heard a horn. "Oh no, somebody's coming!" The two quickly rushed back inside the barn as a mutated Bulgy passed by. The two engines did not dare make a sound. Once Bulgy was out of sight, the two friends exited the barn again. That was close. "Bertie, are you alright?" "Oh gee, I'm just fine. I just survived a literal apocalypse!" "Whoa, Bertie, what's with the attitude?" "I'm sorry, Terrence. I'm just really afraid is all." "So am I, Bertie, but we have to stay strong. As long as we stay together, we should be okay." As the two trundled along, Bertie got a little nervous. "Terrence, what if another one of those mutants show up? Then we'll have to hide is all." Then out of nowhere, a mutant Caroline started driving towards them. "It's too late to hide. We need to get out of here." The two friends raced away with the mutant chasing after them. As they were being chased, Bertie noticed that Caroline was starting to smoke up. Then he remembered that Caroline can't go too fast or else she'll overheat. This gave him an idea. Bertie reversed to the back of Trevor and gave him a push. Then he proceeded to drive away as fast as he could. Caroline couldn't take the high speeds, and she eventually overheated. Using Caroline's faults to our advantage. Good thinking, Bertie. They stopped over by Wellsworth Station. "You know, Bertie, you really seem to know what you're doing." "Well, you know, using other engines' weaknesses to our advantage, and most of the vehicles like George and Trevor are relatively slow, so we shouldn't have an issue. Bulgy and Harold are the only ones I can see having an issue with. Bulgy because he's about as fast as I am, maybe faster, and Harold because he can fly. Well, as long as we primarily run into George, Caroline, or Trevor, then we should be fine. Honestly, I wish to not run into any of them." The two had a good laugh about that. "Don't worry, Bertie. I'm sure we'll thrive as long as we work together." As the days turned into months, Bertie and Terrence continued to fight to stay alive on the island of Sodor. They would hide whenever Bulgy or Harold would appear. And they made sure to maneuver George and Trevor as much as they could. And seeing how Caroline already broke down in Sodor Fallout, she wasn't too much of a problem. They would also hide from the mutant engines that would guard the rails. Bertie and Terrence were back and forth between Farmer McColl's barn and Farmer Trotter's farm, and occasionally the vicarage orchard. "Terrence, something must be done. We can't keep fighting. Eventually we're gonna have to fight these things head on." "It's too dangerous to fight them head on, Bertie, but you are right. Something must be done about these mutants." Then they heard a horn that made them shudder. Oh no, it's Bulgy! And sure enough, Bulgy was rushing towards them. But there was worse to come. There was Harold flying in the sky. Oh great, the two mutants we didn't want to run into. And without hesitation, Bertie began to push Terrence along. However, the weight of Terrence was slowing Bertie down, allowing Bulgy to catch up. "Bertie, I'm only slowing you down. You have to leave without me." But Bertie had other ideas. He pushed Terrence into a ditch and then drove off. That wasn't what I had in mind. But lucky for Terrence, Harold and Bulgy only seemed interested in Bertie. Bertie continued to race along the road, desperately trying to escape the mutants. Then Bertie suddenly stopped, his fear turning into anger. "I'm done running." And Bertie quickly turned around and faced Bulgy, who was still racing towards him. Bertie revved his engine and charged towards Bulgy at the opposite direction. As the two buses were about to collide, something shot at Bulgy and threw him off the road. Bertie quickly applied his brakes and screeched to a halt. Next it was Harold's turn. He attempted to dive bomb at Bertie, but he was shot down by the same projectile. That was when Bertie decided to look over. And there in the distance was Thomas, pulling a flatbed carrying what looked like a ballista turret. "Thomas, you're alive? How is this possible?" "Bertie, get on the empty flatbed. I'll explain on the way." When Bertie was loaded onto Thomas's empty flatbed, he took him to the works. On the way there, Thomas explained to Bertie about the antidote. "Thomas, how long has that antidote been a thing for?" "About a month or so." "What I don't understand is how soap and milk can kill the mutation. I mean, with a steam engine, it's probably easy because you can just throw it in their smoke box. But what about diesels and road vehicles that rely on fuel and gas? And what about poor Stafford? He runs on a battery." "I'm sure we'll find a cure that suits the road vehicles and diesels soon, but for right now, you'll be safe with us." Later on at Tidmouth's sheds, all the engines were talking. That had to be one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. "I agree, James. I'm just glad it's finally over." And the other engines agreed with Gordon. "Edward, you've been awfully quiet. Is everything all right?" "I can't say for certain, Thomas, but I don't think this is over yet." "What are you talking about, Edward? We have an antidote. We can cure all the engines." "I wouldn't be so sure about that. I mean, Duck told me that he hasn't seen Oliver in a while. And have you noticed that Oliver's been gone months before the explosion?" "Now that you mention it, Edward, I have noticed. I hope he's all right." But I'm afraid things were only about to get worse. For something terrible